Adama, you have got this wonderful documentary featuring you and featuring your family, which I was watching part of earlier today. What's the name of that documentary for our esteemed audience to be checking it out right now?
Sure, it's my name, Adama, Adama.
And when you have a film like that that stars you, that stars your family, the total strangers have now seen the, where your parents sleep. I think at one point they're the camera's literally in their bedroom. How does that impact you? How does that impact them now that you're, movie stars?
I don't think we're movie stars yet. I think when Halle Berry starts playing me, then I could say I'm a movie star. But so a lot of people they ask about where is everyone now? So they're surprised to know the little boy who's running naked in the movie. He's 17 now and he's, up to the ceiling tall. So they're like, I can't believe it. I think a lot of people are like, I feel like I grew up with your family. I do post on social media like updates about my family. I think people are curious to know how we came, out of this traumatic experience. But most of them are always interested in my brother Abdul, who you'll see the documentary, who really held the camera. And they're interested to know who he is now and what he does. And I usually just update them. But I think it was important for them to see that. I think it was important for the world to see that because you're here painting me as this horrible person that's about to do horrible things. And I'm showing you my bedroom and I'm showing you my siblings and my family and what we do and who we really are. So it's like changing the narrative.
Well, at that point, I mean, the FBI had already been through everything that you had out there, right? So you were already sort of living in the public sphere. You were just broadening it out by making a documentary in a way, right?
Yes. Again, so when we first got arrested, our stories were plastered, but because we were minors, our name wasn't. But the Muslim community is small, New York City is small. Eventually, people found out who I was. So it was important for me to make sure that the world understands I'm not that person. It's very rare for people to, well, the community thinks that the FBI doesn't just walk up and accuse you, but Black and Latino people of color, who have history showing that they do get targeted and this is what they go through. They know what I went through. They know that I was innocent. But for other audience who've never experienced that kind of discrimination, for them it's like, well, it's hard for them to believe that I was innocent, especially at a time where fear was being used. So it was important to have that film out and to have my narrative out.
Now that you're a citizen of the country, um, do you feel that you are free to go about your life at this point? Are you still worried that somebody somewhere is always watching you? If there's a truck parked across the street, there's maybe somebody with a microphone in it listening. How do you feel? Do you feel that you're under surveillance as we're speaking?
I probably am, but at this point, I don't care. I just hope that if I'm being mugged, they step in. I just don't care. I have nothing to hide. I do know that I am being surveilled because every time I travel, I get that extra screening, or every time I come into the country, I get that extra screening. I'm constantly stopped by NYPD. I just recently was stopped in Indiana. And I just recently learned about the gang database. So it's this database that the NYPD created, and anybody could be on it. Even you could be on it. As if you live in a poor neighborhood or if you've seen with a gang member, you're put on this database. And the only way to be taken out of that database is to if you die, pretty much. You're young. I forgot what's the youngest, but they have high schoolers there, middle schoolers on that gang database. And the attorneys and I were just talking that I might be on that database. And the only way to find out is to file a lawsuit, to file a FOIA, because I was on so many lists, but I wouldn't know until I filed a lawsuit. Like I was on a no-fly list. I didn't know I was on a no-fly list until I tried to fly. My immigration case was under CARP. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it was extra review of my citizenship. But CARP is another organization, another umbrella. So you won't know really what list you're on and what surveillance you're being on until you actually file a lawsuit, which is sad. But is the reality that we live in right now. But the more I talk about my story, the more that Salvador and Freshta talk about her story, the more we bring awareness to our situations and we change it. That's the only thing we can do for now, because I don't want my children to live the trauma that I've lived through. And if I can advocate more to change that, I would do that.
Something I'd heard you say is that you were cautioning, you've got a video cautioning that we should not be referring to the January 6th mob as terrorists. I'm not comfortable calling them tourists. Why shouldn't we call them terrorists, and what would be a better way to refer to them?
So the reason why I had said that is because the history have shown they wanted to make new laws about domestic terrorism, but we already had laws for domestic terrorism. We have laws about terrorism in general. As I said in my video, they found the laws to arrest me and accuse me of terrorism. If I had done what they have done, trust me, I would be under the jail right now. But it was important because during the pandemic, a lot of my volunteers were Black Lives Matter protesters. And every morning I would hear their stories of what they went through during the protests, how they were tear gas, how they were hit by the police, different situations. Now, if that domestic terrorism law was applied or passed, guess who's going to suffer? Peaceful protesters, people like myself who are advocating, we're going to be considered domestic terrorism. So it's not going to help. These laws only affect people of color. We already have the laws. They just have to use those laws. We just recently had a school shooter again. And what picture did they use? They used a picture of him in middle school praying. I don't understand. And again, we cannot, they are terrorists, but we cannot call them that, because then they're going to use peaceful protesters as terrorists too.